Hey, what's going on? Nick Unsworth here, and if you've ever had any desire to launch a podcast, and in this case specifically a video podcast, then you definitely want to check out this episode where I break down all of the steps on how you too can launch a video podcast and build up your audience. And it's not just about building up an audience, it's attracting customers into your business, growing your revenues, and living a heck of a life on fire. So check it out.
Hey, what's going on? Nick Unsworth here, and I'm a kick-ass business coach, and I'm on an absolute mission to help you find your purpose in life, to help you love what you do for work every single day, to help you be the rock star that you are meant to be, to make more money than you ever thought was possible, and to have more time freedom so you can actually enjoy the life that you're living. I'm here to help you set your life on fire.
All right, so before we get rolling, can I get, for the in-studio audience, can I just get a quick stand-up, and I need a mean high five to your neighbor, and I'll take one up front. I'll take it up front, too. All right. So it has been an awesome, awesome day so far. And I mean, we've had just amazing speakers. We've had everyone from, John Lee Dumas sharing how he is netting over, just a couple $100,000 a month, no big deal, to Michael O'Neill, who we call the ambassador, who is just crushing it, and he's taken it to a whole new level, Greg Hickman. So I just want to, if you're here right now and you're live with us, just congratulate you for, still being so focused and paying attention, because the things that are shared here today literally can change your life completely. And so what I would like to do is share a little bit about my background story, a little bit about what you guys are going to get out of here today. But I'm going to make sure that after this session, you guys have exactly what you need to start a video podcast. You're going to know the pros, the cons, whether you should go with audio, whether you should go with video. And you're going to know some of the things that I learned along the way. What not to do. I made a couple of really costly mistakes. And I'm also going to give you guys the playbook on how you can market that video podcast, or even actually a regular audio podcast, so that you can actually bring in clients and make money. Because what I love about podcasting is that it gives us the opportunity to do what we love. It gives us the opportunity to take our passion and just speak it right into a microphone and love what we do for work. But the thing is that becomes way more fun when you're earning a living doing it, when you're monetizing, when you're building up your email list like Greg was talking about. So I'm going to walk through a strategy that will help you monetize really, really fast, which is cool. So the next I have on deck here is just a little inspiration how I started my personal podcast. So there I was about less than a year ago. So this is back, actually it was about exactly a year ago now that I think about it. It was in September, so we're going on a little over a year when I actually met John for the first time and Michael O'Neill. I had a friend that reached out and said, "Oh my God, your life on fire, and he's entrepreneur on fire, and you guys have to meet. You just have to meet." She was like freaking out on the phone. And she was so excited that how could I possibly not, take her up on that? So I reached out, John and I started, texting, connecting. And it was about 11 o'clock at night, and I was like, man, I really feel like I need to meet this guy, And so we end up catching like the last drink at this restaurant, and I ended up meeting Michael O'Neill. And this very photo, this pixelated mess of a photo, is Michael O'Neill doing the blue steel face from Zoolander, the ambassador. You've got Natalie Sisson, Suitcase Entrepreneur, John Dumas, and myself, and that's literally the day. And what I love is that was the day that I was inspired to start a podcast. And you know what this day is for many of you watching online, for you guys here in this room, is that today is the day that you get inspired to start a podcast and start living that life on fire and doing exactly what you love. And so from that day, what happened is I was sitting at the table and having a drink, and I'm like, I just about was like, what? And like almost spit my beer out thinking about how much revenue was coming in for John, and like you just podcast and that's it. And I was like, so what exactly is a podcast? I asked that same question. And I was that guy because I had never once consumed a podcast. I had heard of them. I've been doing online marketing. I focus on Facebook advertising and doing webinars, but I've never actually even consumed one at that point in my life. And so that was the day I got the podcast app. The first one I listened to was, of course, your show and Mike's show. And I was like, this is just incredible. I mean, to me, it opened up a lot of doors that, wow, someone could truly do what they love for work, and they could do it in the comfort of their own house. This is an entire business model. So at that day, my wheels started turning. And so what I'm going to do throughout this presentation is I'm going to walk you guys through exactly what happened to me from the day that I was inspired. And that is exactly what today is for you. And I'm going to share with you how fast I grew and how I leveraged surrounding myself with the right people, coming to events, investing in myself, learning, on a platform like this. What I'm going to do, I'm going to dive into the next step here. But before I do, I'm actually going to take a selfie. I don't know if this is going to mess everything up, but I'm going to unplug this for now. And I want to show you guys how simple video is, because all I'm going to do is pull out my handy phone here. It's not the big, humongous 6, but I'm going to do a little selfie. I'm going to get you guys involved. All right, so a good selfie is going to go, let me see, let me get my right settings. Boom, boom, boom. All right. So when you're doing a selfie video, you want to make sure you get the right angle, and it always makes you look about 10 pounds less than you really are, which is why I love the selfie. So I'm going to selfie, do a little intro, then I'm going to get you guys involved. Is that cool?
Yeah. Pretty smile.
Hey, what's going on? Nick Unsworth here. I'm live at Creative Live, and I'm doing a selfie to just say what's up, say hello, and introduce the audience. You gotta wave, gotta look like I'm awesome. How good is this presentation? Yo, so good. All right, boom. Okay, that's a video. It was as easy as that. That could be uploaded straight to Instagram. That could also be part of a video podcast. That could be an intro. That probably will be an intro that I'll use. So doing video can be so simple, just like that, because at the end of the day, I've used my iPhone in my video podcast many, many times. We talk about with audio, yeah, you've got to have, sometimes to do it right, you have to have a great rig and setup and all these things. You do want to have good audio. But at the end of the day, some of my best podcast episodes is where I do an intro with like a selfie because I'm out doing something, and that is part of what everyone's talking about with being entertaining and doing something fun. And it's like, I was talking about what we're doing with our virtual summit, and it's to benefit building a school in Guatemala. Well, I have a video of me in Guatemala. Like, I'm out here in Guatemala, and there's kids running behind us, and it's like, we're out here volunteering and building a school. Check out this episode. It's over the shoulder of me in Guatemala. And it's like, yeah, I'll check that out. So you can make it entertaining, you can make it fun and simple, and you can do it on your iPhone or any other phone for that matter. So, to dive into exactly on the opportunity for a video podcast. So the reason there's a lot of big opportunities right now is because this actually came from John about a year ago. He's like, man, if you were to differentiate with a video, you could stand out. You could be, a horse of a different, was it a cow of a different color or a horse of a different color? Or a unicorn, you could be a unicorn. So you can stand out with a video podcast. And the thing is that, John had a meeting in Cupertino with some iTunes execs, and they said that a lot of their focus was going to be on video, bringing in some talent, bringing in some amazing shows, comedy, all these different things. And I totally believe that to be true because there's been little things that have happened to us when we got started. So we rolled out the show, and we became the #1 entrepreneurial inspiration show in all of the business category or on iTunes. And I think part of that's because we were different. We're on video. Right now, we're back on like what's hot. And so I think that there's a little bit of love and a little bit of advantage. You do have a video show, which is really cool because I think they're trying to help move things along. So video is definitely a big opportunity. And so I think that the other thing is that it's a way to build connection with your audience that's different. So if you think about it, face-to-face, right? You can talk with someone, you can get to know them, you see their body language, and there's rapport built that way. But when you're just audio, it's amazing, and there's a ton of rapport because you feel like you get to know them over time. And I'm sure, if anyone's been podcasting for a year or more, you go to an event, and it's like, man, I feel like I know Michael O'Neill, right? On video, I think it's that times 2 because they see you. And the thing that's really cool, and I find it to be not only a benefit, but it's part of the big opportunity, is that it was between day 90 and day 120, between 3 and 4 months, I got 3 clients that purchased our high-ticket coaching. So this is crazy. So I've been doing online marketing for 5 years. I've never once had someone come to our website and just buy something that was more than $1,000 without me having to sell it, right? So all of a sudden, it's a Monday, I get on my regular call with my team member, Ryan. He's like, dude, you're not gonna believe this, man. He's like, who's this, this Mark guy. And I'm like, what do you mean? He's like, yeah, he applied to be a Firestarter Elite, which is our $36,000 a year coaching program. And I'm like, what? I'm like, how do you know him? Like, what happened? Like, good work, man. He's like, no, I don't know who he is. And we come to figure it out. It's because he saw my podcast. And it didn't take him that many episodes to build, where I built rapport just by teaching. And he's like, I want that guy in my corner. And he applied himself online and paid. Now, what would your life look like if someone just came to your website? It was just like, here's my credit card, without you knowing. You're in bed, you're sleeping, and you get up and you're like, wow, there's this new customer that just paid, and then it had one question when you get on the phone and said, how can I, instead of making $3,000 a month payments, how can I do it all in one blast and just give you 30 grand? I mean, that's crazy. So people that say there's no money in podcasting, I will share that story till I'm blue in the face. I mean, it's incredible. And I think that is because of the connection built because of face-to-face. Could it have happened on audio? Totally possible. I mean, there's no doubt. Audio, what I love is that it's a much bigger market. So I want to also, like my job, I'm going to share the awesome things about video podcasting, but it's my job today, right now, to give you guys the full picture, because I don't want anyone leaving here saying, I have to do video if audio is better for you. And so the downside on the video side is that the audience is way smaller. So I love that in a minute, you're going to see the fact that I rank, #1 in my categories and things like that. It's great for my brand. But my download numbers are I don't even know how to do the math on what fraction of John's are, you know what I mean, or even Michael's. And it's because if video podcasting is like Lake Michigan, that's the audience. Audio podcasting is like taking all of the water in the world. You know what I mean? It's just way bigger. And the other thing is that when you're consuming something, think of how you consume something, right? Yourself. I mean, it's like if it's a video, you kind of have to sit down and really get in front of it, and you got to kind of pay attention to it fully. And on the audio side, you could be jogging. We ran the Golden Gate Bridge yesterday. But I could not have done that with the wind blowing that crazy and been watching my video show. It just would not have worked. It would have flown out of my hand. So it's like video, it's different. You have to be paying attention. You can't be driving and watching a video show. And so what's interesting is we take the same video file and we just strip out the audio, and now we have both a video and an audio show. So that, to me, is a really unique opportunity. But it's important to know that that's how people consume the audio, pool of people on iTunes is way huger. And if I could do the whole thing over again, on iTunes, I would put my focus on the audio version of my show, and I would still do the video, but I would put my focus on YouTube on the video side. And I'm going to get into all kinds of cool marketing techniques. So that's part of the opportunity and just part of just the bare bones facts about how it works. So an actual video podcast, this is just to demonstrate. I just pulled up iTunes on my desktop, and I went to the business category, and then this is on video. And so you've got, just like audio podcasts, you've got all the different podcasts, and what's hot, and boom, video. So just like that there's audio, no different video, it's just a different medium where you're seeing the visual representation or the images. So benefits, we kind of crank through a lot of those, but I want you to really think about what it is that you do and how you want to build connection. If you have a higher ticket offer, or maybe if you're in a particular niche where you're not going to have, if you're narrowed down in your audience and with whatever it is that your passion is, you don't have to have millions of people downloading your show. And if you know that the reality is in your niche, you're never going to really have a monster audience, well, then a video show could create the rapport that could really add a lot of value. If you just like being on camera, or you like sharing how-to, that is a very smart thing to do. One thing I've found is that when you have a video show, you take that one file and it goes to iTunes. That's one piece. There's your podcast. That exact same video file I take and I dump it right to YouTube. Now, and without doing any formal YouTube marketing until recently, it's like we have over 2,000 subscribers that we haven't even done any marketing, no email, we haven't talked about it, nothing, just organically. And so what's cool is that if you consider how you personally use YouTube, and it's just like Google, YouTube is the second biggest search engine. So people go on YouTube and they're like, how do I podcast? How do I set up the gear? How do I do this? How do I do that? So if you're going to do video, you should probably, and you're doing anything how-to based, you put that right on YouTube, because that's how they're searching. And the beauty of YouTube is that, I mean, what if they're on YouTube and you're getting natural organic traffic just popping up to the tune where I've done this with a training on Facebook advertising, and I've gotten over 15,000 views without paying for it, just because I wrote, you know, how to use the new Facebook timeline. And people are like, Facebook timeline just came out. Like, how do I use this thing, right? And then I popped up and I'm getting all this free traffic. So the way I look at it is, in my head and where I'm moving and all these things I've learned about video podcasting is my how-to content, that is going to definitely be on YouTube. That same video file will be on our Life on Fire TV on iTunes. But the thing that's interesting is that where, you know, I do a lot of interviews, and I'm going to share about part of what makes me unique is I do like behind the scenes, like I'll have like we'll literally go in someone's house and show how they live and things like that, and that makes me different. But at the end of the day, I mean, how much time and how difficult is that to do? So just to make everything simpler, it's like, you know, I could just do me on camera doing how-to, and the audio, I could just do Skype interviews like these guys shared. You know, so you've got to think about, you know, what would really work for your business and how do you want to live? And I've had people say things like, you know, I really want to do the video podcast and I want to have both the video and the audio, things like that, but I hate being on camera. And it's like, well, don't push a rock up a hill and don't like force it. You want to do what feels right for you. And you know, I used to not like being on camera, and then I fell into a couple speaking situations, and then now I find that I like it. I have fun. You know, I don't worry about the camera, and I can goof off and just be me, and you know, it's resonating with my audience. But if you have some kind of crazy phobia, then screw it. Just do audio. Do what's easy for you. So basically, what I'm going to do is I'm going to also, like I said, kind of walk through what the journey was, you know, like starting the podcast, and I'm going to share 15 steps with you guys. And so what's cool is that I'm not that far ahead of any of you. You know what I mean? And if you're watching this and you just got inspired literally today to create a podcast, I mean, I'm less than a year ahead of you. And I've been able to track back over $117,000 literally just to the show. So that's pretty cool to break 6 figures. And it's like we don't have monstrous download numbers. We just have great friends. These guys. And thank you for bringing me here to talk about this. So basically, I'll share a little bit about my journey and then the 15 steps. So I've got one question. And if you're at home, I need full participation with everybody. So if you would like to see the 15 steps, I need a hand up all the way to the sky. All right, I'm only doing it if we have full participation. I see a couple video people in the back with no hands up. That means you, dude.
Guys, hands up.
All right, we got everybody. All right, we're in. All right, so. Yeah, and this is to help. This was like my, you know, prop to help get there if I couldn't pull it off myself. So the very first step is, and I'm not going to repeat everything that has already happened today because you guys learned a ton about how to start a show and like what to talk about. But I am going to go back and talk just about this for a second because it's so important. And I would say that, you know, you heard from John earlier today about, you know, it's like, what are your passions? What are you good at? And see where those things match up. And also think about it, you know, if I were to hand you a bag of money or if someone bought on your website and you had more money that you knew what to do with, I ask you, what would you do with your time? Like literally if you had $100 million after tax and you could do anything. You know, you've already given to charities, you've already done all this stuff. It's like, literally what would you do and what would you talk about? Because I think that for me as a business coach and with the company Life on Fire, my goal is to help people live a life on fire. And if they're doing something for money or if they're doing something just for, you know, whether it's recognition or to be famous, all that stuff is like empty calories once you get there. And so you really should have something that's so connected with your core and your purpose and what you want to do. And so what is that? You know, if money were no issue, you know, what is it that you would talk about? And so for you guys here, so what's something that is you're so passionate about, you feel like you are dropped in this earth to do, that's your purpose? And so anyone in the room, so what do you feel so compelled to do?
I would talk about what I'm thinking about making my second podcast around photography because that's where I got started as an entrepreneur. And I love it. When I post my pictures on Facebook, they get the most clicks, they get the most interaction. And it's something I don't think about. Mm-hmm. So I do other things now, but that would be my number one thing I would do without even thinking twice about it.
So that for me is, I look at that and say, man, you'd be crazy to do anything else. Because if it doesn't feel like work and you're so inspired to do it, and if you truly put your energy into it and put your twist on it, you could build a huge following around that, you know, and there's never been a better time in life to take advantage of social media. I mean, shoot, look at Creative Live and all the photographers and how this was built, but there's so many pieces of technology, and everything that you learned here today, you know, could be applied for that particular niche. And I just think that, you know, my whole background is being an entrepreneur, and I was an entrepreneur, you know, my whole life. Man, I had a paper route at 6 years old because my brother had one, he's older, and I demanded half. And then it's like, I looked around at my family, I looked around at friends, and it was really sad that everyone was working so much. And, you know, my own family was just like, I mean, if you think about it, people spend more time working than we do with friends, with family, doing any other activity in life. We spend more hours working than anything else. And so if you don't love what you do, you're really taking a huge bite out of your life, you know, and throwing it to whatever. So I just look at it, yeah, Michael?
Hi, Michael O'Neill from the Solopreneur Hour.
The ambassador.
To your point, podcasting is simultaneously really, really easy, and then also one of the hardest things. There's so much work, as you guys probably know, because many of you here have a podcast, to get the thing from idea to actually being on iTunes, between all the audio and the recording, the website and all that stuff. So sometimes it can be a grind, and if you're not doing it on a subject that you absolutely love, enough that it's, oh no, it's 12:30 and something happened to my audio and I have to redo this show for tomorrow because you can't miss the deadline, that means that you have to have that passion for it. I mean, really have that passion for it.
And that's a great point. And I think that when you are truly in alignment with what you're here on this earth to do, so whether you believe in God or whether you just feel like you have a mission or a meaning or something that you want to, on how you want to help people, at the end of the day, when you're in that alignment and you're talking on your podcast about something that is so near and dear to your heart, that is so, it's your own movement or your own mission, that when you have the challenge in front of you that is the size of a freaking mountain, when you're this inspired about your business, you're going to overcome it, and it's going to effectively be the size of like an anthill, because you'll find a way to overcome it. You know, you'll always find a solution. Whereas it's like every time I work with an entrepreneur that they're not connected with a business that's connected to their core or their mission or their being, it's so easy for them to get taken out. It's the one big obstacle, the one big challenge. Next thing you know, they're done. Or, you know, the startup rate is like, what, 95% or something like that? Have you ever heard that stat? It's like, I think 95% of businesses fail. Well, if I'm doing what I love, nothing will, it's impossible to fail. If you're doing what you feel that you're meant to do on this earth, nothing would ever stop me from that. You know, and would it for you? Probably not. So it's like, if you look at whatever you're thinking about doing, whatever you learned here today, take another hard look at that. Write it down, and if you have to come back to it, take a moment to do that, because when you connect this is the one differentiator I have with Life on Fire that will never change. You know, John mentioned that I sold a business by 30, and I did, and it was one of the worst experiences of my entire life. I was so focused on not being like others were, where they were, you know, worked at a job they hated, and they weren't there for like my football games and this and that, and I resented people that were just too busy, you know, but they were working. And then my whole life I just wanted to be financially free. And sure enough, I go on this mission to do that, and I sell a business by 30 like I said I would, and I even had a tattoo on my chest with a goal saying I would do that, and I did it. And for what though? I thought it was my purpose at the time. It was Facebook advertising. I thought I was helping people. I was doing a great service. I kind of thought it was my mission, my purpose. But in reality, I ended up in San Diego, more money than I've ever had in my life, yet I was standing over this gorgeous balcony, the same balcony that John has, and I cried. And I'm not like, I was trained as a kid not to like cry as a little boy, you know, and I freaking cried, because it was like, what is all that for? I'm alone, I'm in San Diego, don't have many friends out here, and I'm now like looking for my next thing. And so it was at that moment that I had this aha moment. I was like, you know what? It's like, we spend more than the majority of our life we spend working. So it's like, why don't I just do something that like I love wholeheartedly, that I would do whether I was getting paid or not. And at the end of the day, I would never sell that. And when people say that they're like, oh, they want to sell a business, it's such an illusion, because why would you sell something that you love? Like if you've got a child, would you sell your child? I don't have a child, but if I did, I probably wouldn't be down to sell them. You know what I mean? Like, I mean, it's crazy, you know? And it's like, well, so the way I look at it is I was so focused on an end destination, And I was so obsessed with selling a business, I missed out on all of the fun in my 20s. And that stinks, right? And I think that so many people are like, oh, I can't wait to retire. Then I'm going to be happy. You know, all this time in between, paying my dues, as they say. You know, podcast, I'm going to work my butt off, and then at some point, I'll start the podcast that I really like, or I'll be happy later. That to me is just a broken model. So it's like, think of whatever you're doing in your life, just design your podcast to suit you and be fun for you. You know, my show started out 3 days a week. I dropped it down to 2 because, you know, it was too much. Like, it was too taxing on me, you know, to be running around doing videos. So at the end of the day, it's like, get in alignment with your purpose, what your message is, what really resonates with you. And if you do that, the marketing is going to come easier. A lot of the things are going to come easier and easier and easier. And I feel that one last strategy on this, I just have to share it because it can help you figure this out, is what I call the 3 S's. And so the 3 S's are, what's your story? You know, and that means, like, what's your background? What's your story? You know, I've got a buddy who almost died from alcohol abuse, and he's a young guy. You're talking 33 years old. And for him, it was a miracle that he lived. And now his story is he came back basically from the dead. And now he's on a mission to inspire other kids that are in rehabs and things like that, struggling with addiction. And now he's going to be a big old podcaster. He's going to be speaking on stages. And this guy used to work at a nursing home, and that's partly why he ended up in this position to begin with. He was so friggin' unhappy. And so his story was his background. And his stance, the second S, which is stance, is he's taking a stand for basically not loving what you do for work and being miserable and leading, you know, having to go to alcohol to that level to just numb himself. And the third S would be, what's your strategy? If you look at your background story and say, this is why I'm so passionate about photography, because of why, right? Or I'm so passionate about Life on Fire because I grew up where, you know, people in my life weren't able to be around because they were working so much. Now, I respect that, but also I, as an entrepreneur, built and sold a business that didn't make me happy, and I look at other entrepreneurs that work 100 hours a week and say, guys, that's not a good plan for your life. That's a good plan to make money, but that's also a good plan to get divorced. That's a good plan to, you know what I mean, like get illness from stress and all that. But it's like, instead, just love what you do. So in my case, my background story and the experiences as a kid led me up to my stance. And I had a business coach that said, Nick, what's your stance? And I was like, I don't know, what do you mean? And then she was like, well, I can't say the word, what effing pisses you off? And I was like, I'm a pretty happy guy. You know, I'm not really sure. Nothing really, you know, pisses me off like that. And she's like, what's the movement that you're going to start? And all of a sudden, it hit me, and I was like, you know what? I want to help inspire people to love what they do for work and then give them the tools to help them be successful with it. And so think about, what is your background story? It could be good. It could be a negative experience that you've overcome, and now you're using your podcast to do something. You know, so it's your story, your stance, and then your strategy is, how do you execute it? How do you create your movement of people that are going to follow you into the trenches and be your tribe? So 3 S's is something that it will change the way you look at starting your podcast. So again, I kind of talked about my purpose here, so I can zip past that. The next step is, so here you're at a spot, and we're all going to assume we're just, all right, we've got our story, we've got our stance, we know our strategy, we feel really good about it. You're like, man, I would do this podcast if I got paid or not. You know, and I think about Sean, you were in that boat. You know, I think I actually like to have you share what you're doing, because I think he's a great example of, he's like, you know, I'm not sure if it's going to be, you know, profitable, things like that, but I feel like, just share real quick what your podcast is, and then I'd like to just move on from there.
Okay, my name's Sean O'Daniels, and I just launched a podcast this week called Creative Trek. My background, I've been a visual development artist in games and film, and it's a very volatile industry. A lot of layoffs after every project, but you work with really talented people. And so for the past decade, it's always been me just heads down, drawing. My personal story, which I didn't share with you, was I was a lead recently for a big company, and I had a really young team. And we got our assignment, and I pretty much was like, okay, let's charge, let's do it. And all these young artists were freaking out, like, we didn't sign up for this. And I took it away from them, did it myself, and the team hated me. I was competitive. So after the last layoff, I pulled a Costanza and said, I'm going to do the opposite of everything I've ever done.
Yes. I always pretend like I'm working, like Costanza
Right?
does. Yeah.
And I said, that's it. I'm going to give all this talent that's in these industries that nobody knows about a platform. I want to share their personal projects, their side projects, who they are, their story, what they're doing. Not just the people that inspire me, you know, like idols and artists and art directors and, you know, like John Lasseter and directors who I've always admired. I want to tell their story, their journey. And that's what the show's about. And I don't care if I don't make a cent. I don't know where it's going to go. I'm making a lot of new friends, and it's been great.
And so I think there's some cool things there. I think number one is that there's something that happened in his life that was part of your story. There was something jarring that got you to actually do it. And if for you to tell that story as you weave that into your show, it will be huge. It's for John Lee Dumas that, you know, he was consuming a podcast over and over and over, but he ran out of shows. There was no 7-day-a-week show, and then he created one. You know, and your story, you were so unhappy with what you were doing in commercial real estate. So it's like for all of us to get clear on what that story is. And then for you, what I love is that your stance is you want to create this platform. You want to bring people together. Now, it's a niche podcast, but the beautiful thing is that by sharing that story and bringing people together, you know, Sean's setting up his life that when he does the interviews, he's building relationships with the people he's interviewing. Because just check this out. How cool is it if I wanted to go talk to some New York Times bestselling author and I don't have a podcast and I'm just like, hey, I love your books, you know, Seth Godin, can we just like hang out and have ice cream? He's gonna be like, no, man, like get out of here. But it's like, hey, mister, you know, I've got this podcast. They don't know what your download numbers are. So as long as your graphic design looks good, you can be as cool as you want. I was as cool as ice, you know what I mean? And the cool thing is it allows you to be able to, like, even if I never made a cent, I could use my podcast as a platform to interview really cool people that I just want to learn from, you know, and almost selfishly like build relationships with that could turn into friendships, that could turn into joint venture, you know, situations in the business. So it's like, that's a huge way to monetize, and you're already doing that.
Well, that was the other inspiration behind it. I was in between jobs, right? I was laid off, I was freelancing, but I wanted to learn. I wanted to learn from these amazing, inspiring artists and people I looked up to and admired. And when I had a show and I just asked them and told them how much I loved their work, it was an easy yes.
Yeah. And that right there, and I want to just highlight the fact that, you know, who you get on your show as a guest is going to dictate part of your audience. And I think, you know, when you look at how do you grow an audience, and I'm going to talk about this in a later step, but it's who you get on to interview. Ideally, that they're going to be so excited and so happy that they were on it and you do a good job that they will also share it too. So what's cool is by you picking and looking at your niche and going to the top, the head of like Pixar and the big names, well, if they share it or tweet it, then your audience is going to stem from that, which is really cool. But you had the guts to go out and get that person. It's John had the guts as, you know, he came out and started his podcast and you had what, like Seth Godin, you had Barbara Corcoran and had all these amazing entrepreneurs and everyone else was like, I'm going to stay where I'm comfortable in the B list or whatever. You know, so it's like take whatever niche you have and you've got to shoot for the stars. Like whoever, and this is the way I do it, is whoever I experience the most amount of fear in my body when I think about reaching out to interview, and it's like, oh God, that's the person. Because I'm the most scared to talk to that person, so that's my barometer, my indicator to go talk to that one. You know, that's how I got Kevin Harrington from Shark Tank and Tony Hsieh, the guy who invented and built Zappos to over $1 billion. Like that was a doozy. But so that's just a little tidbit there. But I think as far as the show, so Sean's gotten clear. We want you to get clear in your 3 S's. You've got to make sure that you define your outcome, because even if you're like, all right, I don't have to monetize it next month or anything, at the end of the day, you've got to know what your personal reasons are for it. So, you know, if Sean's clear that this is for networking and this is his passion and he could talk about it every day if he wasn't getting paid, and you define these things, that's cool. But at the end of the day, you don't ever want to go into podcasting with not knowing what you selfishly want to get out. So we all want to inspire people and things like that. That's the mission of my business. But you want to make sure that you're clear. Like, what's your selfish reason for it? You know, do you want to build up your email list? Do you want to, you know, be able to quit your job? Like, set that outcome. And then the second thing is you got to know what the outcome is for your viewer. I want people to know if they watch Life on Fire TV for 90 days, that they're going to be different than when they started. They may have started a business. They may have grown their business. I mean, I've got people that have made their first $1,000 online, or we've got people that have used our Facebook strategies and made $10,000 on webinar. It's like, I want them to be clear that, you know, by watching this show, you're going to get inspired. And I literally at times have said, if you haven't made that leap to do what you love, then you shouldn't be watching it. You know what I mean? Like if you're watching this and you've watched this for, you know, and this is the 10th episode that you've watched, and you haven't, you know, taken the steps to do the 3 S's, or you haven't taken the time to make that shift to doing what you love, you're just teasing yourself. You're just in a dream state and getting a little high from being inspired. But it's like, I want people to actually get stuff done. I want success stories. That's my outcome. So in my case, you know, I want to help to actually grow my audience and sell coaching, because for me, coaching is where I can get my tentacles in there and help people grow faster. And I'm obsessed about creating success stories. Someone that was working 100 hours a week, never made more than X, and now it's like, I've got a really great lifestyle, and I can spend time with my kids, and I make more money, and it's streamlined. That's my goal. Outcome for the viewers, help them love what they do for work, monetize, live a life on fire. Step number 3 is research and modeling. So if you think about starting a business, sometimes we get so crazy that we think we need to think of the whole plan ourselves. Well, it's very rare, unless you're an inventor, to have a completely unique idea. So all you have to do is do a little research, hop on iTunes if it's for your podcast, and just look what other people are doing for ideas. It's the best place to get ideas. And you want to look at their logos, look at their descriptions, and then look at the categories. You know, it's really interesting that, you know, on video, it was nice because in the categories, there's opportunities. I knew in video, I could easily crush the right categories. I mean, I think I can jump to my phone here. I'll show you how embarrassingly easy it is to get to the top of the charts on video. Shh. But all right, so as you can see here, I'm number 4 on business and video. I don't know, the competition may not be that incredible. I beat Neil Cavuto from Fox. I mean, the Deloitte Insights podcast, I mean, seems to be riveting, but I mean, it's easy competition in the video side. So you can easily get to the top of the charts. But what's cool is I've, you know, gotten to the top of the charts in business, you know, and it works really well. And you think of categories, I mean, you've got all these categories. I mean, you've got, if you're in the arts, it's like click on arts and just scroll down and see what you're up against. You know, what you can do is you can look here, and then the way I would do it is I would figure out where things, like, you can get a gauge based on the logos and based on the competition. You can start to figure out how competitive one of these are. And then you just go to that person's website and look at their Alexa ranking. So if I was going to get into the arts and the video side, I'd go to the TED Talks HD, I'd find their site and look at what is their Alexa ranking. If they're, you know, Alexa just ranks, you know, all the websites in the world, and it assigns them a ranking based on the traffic that they get. So I know that anyone's website that isn't at least in the top 100,000 websites, they're not a player as far as traffic goes. It might be amazing, might have great business, but they're not going to have a big, humongous audience. You know, John, you're probably in the top 10,000 now. And so it's one of these things where you can get a gauge by searching your categories and figuring out which one to go in. You get to choose 3, and I'll jump back to the PowerPoint. But you get to choose 3. So I knew that I want to pop up and rank if someone's on business. I want to be there. Because just like we talked about ranking on iTunes for your keyword, if someone types in entrepreneur, yeah, I definitely want to pop up at the top. But it'd be really nice if someone goes to the business category and I'm up there, or someone goes to the careers category and I'm up there. So you can choose 3 categories. Just make sure that you choose 3 wisely. Just browse around and look at, look at what other people are doing there. So number 4, define your ideal customer. I think that John and Mike really nailed this. Out of all the business coaching that I do, and I've coached hundreds and hundreds of customers, one-on-one, is that ideal customer is usually, probably 99% of the time, it's screwed up. And people are actually marketing to people that they feel comfortable marketing to, but they're not marketing to people that they really want to work with. Example, I've got a client who is a real estate trainer. The guy's a total boss, speaks all over the country. And I'm like, so, all right, man, so tell me about your ideal client. Well, all right, so it's a realtor, she's 45 to 55, awful with technology, maybe sells like 1 to 2 houses per year, really struggling, to get by. And I'm like, time out. Is that who your customers are, or is that who is ideal? And he's like, no, it's who is ideal. And I'm like, dude, you want to work with someone that doesn't have money, that's struggling, that sounds like a complete pain in the butt? Come on. And he's like, so I'm like, dude, who would you love to work with? And he was like, all right, so I'd love to work with a guy that was like 25 to 30, that is hungry, that does what I say, that's like savvy with like online marketing and social media, willing to pick up the phone and do sales calls. I was like, what if you just targeted that? What if they were your customers? Not only would his business change, but his quality of life would change, because that who we associate with is who we become. So it's like, if you're spending all day on the phone with people like that, you're going to turn into one of those ladies. No. But I mean, so just get really clear on who's ideal. So I think look at the exercises earlier today, but then also make sure to think, all right, ideal, is it exactly who I want to talk to, or is it just who I think would be a good customer? Because that's where my comfort level is, or my confidence is. Number 5 is, what is your format? So format is just the layout of your show, like what's your frequency, how often is it going to run? You've got the interview show. So we talked about this a lot. And I think that this is so critical. If part of your outcome is to build a big audience, you'd be totally nuts to not have interviews. The great thing with interviews is that provides content for your show. But the one thing we absolutely cannot get around is that this is how audiences are built. I mean, Michael O'Neill has 3 per week, and every time someone's on, they're excited. The bigger your audience grows, the more excited people are. People go bananas to be on his show. And I'm on it today. Came out. And we're going to be sharing that up, because it's a big deal. Once you've got the audience, it's a really big deal. And if you interview someone that has a big following, and they simply tweet it or share it on Facebook, if you do a good job, now your audience is going to grow. So this, to me, is that's why you can grow an audience faster. And I think another thing that I take away from John Dumas is he's the only one I know that's got the 7-day-a-week show every single day. If you didn't catch this before, this is so critical. Every day, someone is saying, I'm excited to be on John Dumas's Entrepreneur on Fire. Every single day, someone's pushing that out there. Every day, his audience is growing. So this, to me, is critical. So in my case, I want to have this once a week. I'd love to do it more, but I just, podcast for me is not my entire business. This is one piece to add value for people, share what I know, and to attract some clients. So, that's my bandwidth. I do one of these per week. Now, the next thing is teaching. And what's so key about this is that if your outcome is to make money and monetize, and you've got a skill or you're good at something, then you very well may want to be on camera or just on audio, if it's an audio podcast, teaching something. So in my case, it's like, if I only interviewed people, people might look at me and say, yeah, he's a great host and this and that, he's a podcaster. But when I'm doing one interview show and then one episode, it's just me teaching something and I'm like really getting in there and I'm really making an impact for someone, well, now they're like, yeah, I can see why people would hire this guy. So you want to make sure that if you're selling your services, that you need some time to show off what you're good at. You need some time to add some value, do something that you love. And so teaching is really important for that. So for me, I look at it, do one interview, one teaching. That's what I have bandwidth for. That's what works for me. The other type or format is to answer questions. I love this because this builds community. I mean, you see it with Gary Vaynerchuk now, Pat Flynn. I kind of weave this in a little bit. So I might teach something myself and then say, all right, so here's a question from Jimmy, and and answer that question. I think where I see some of these podcasts that are, like Pat Flynn, pipes the questions in, and so you can hear what the person says and then he answers it. I love these because it takes creating content, which can be challenging, and actually puts it back on your tribe, and the content that you're sharing is actually driven by your own community, which is really cool. But the thing is, you have to have a big enough community to get a lot of questions for the whole thing to really work out. So that's one thing. I think it's a great strategy because you can still show off your knowledge and you're building community with everyone else at the same time, which is cool. So how many days per week? I think more content, more downloads, but the one thing, and part of why I went down to 2 episodes per week, is your quality. You're only as good as your last show. And I think that quality supersedes anything that we talk about. Because if you're just putting it out there because you feel like you need to have a lot, that's such a bad idea. You need to put your best foot forward, and if your bandwidth only allows you to do once every other week, then maybe that's what you do. Because just putting more out to have more out is not going to serve you long term. And then you want to be consistent, of course. So in my case, like I said, we're 2 days per week, and my differentiator was that I wanted to stand out some way. So I think that there's a lot of interviews, but I was like, man, if I could, how could I get it so that the person I interview, how do I get it that they want to share this? Because if I know that sharing is what's really important to grow your audience, how do I get someone, like John or like you or, you to share the episode that we did together? And I had a conversation with John. We may or may not have had a glass of scotch. And it was like, hey man, so if I did an interview with you, but I did it MTV Crib style, where we showed this beautiful home that you live in, and it was really different, and we looked in the fridge and just got a different take on your life. What do you think about that? And would you share that up? And he's like, oh man, Fire Nation would love that. And that's when I was like, that's cool, because if he wants to share it, now I'm in. Now that's a really good thing, because if Sean can get those high-level execs and creatives to want to share his stuff, now you got something. So you got to think about what is that twist? What is your twist? And so in my case, my twist was differentiating by actually going on camera with the person in their home and just walking around and seeing how they live. And this guy Jonathan Budd had this giant truth sword. Hey dude, what's up with the 9-foot sword in your living room, and all these crystals everywhere. But he loved it, and his audience loved it, and we got hundreds of shares on it, and it was crazy, and because it was a different take on it, and so that was my twist. And then you look at it and say, well, that's really tough to go out and to film on location like that. But that also comes down into what's my outcome. Part of my outcome is I want to meet and build relationships with people that are amazing, and Kevin Harrington from Shark Tank, I got to go to the guy's house and meet him and be face to face and do this interview. That's a level of rapport that you just don't get over the phone or on Skype. And so part of my outcome is I like doing that cool traveling and meeting people like that. So that's why I'm doing it now. Shoot, just got engaged. If I have a baby in a year and a half, I won't be running around the country doing these, this style of video. I'll change it up. So for you, your show, what is your twist? What makes you different? Modeling, look at what other people are doing is cool and doing what you're passionate about, but then just make it unique. Be creative with this. It's zag when everyone else is zigging. There's John, the 7-day week was that'll never work. It's too much. It's be completely different, and that can really stand out. So.
Hey, what's going on, guys? Nick Unsworth here, and I'm so fired up because I've got not only just a friend, but a mentor and a guy who is just living, walking, breathing proof of what a life on fire looks like. So we're about to go bust in on my good friend and mentor, Lewis Howes, who's got one of the top podcasts called The School of Greatness. And so this is going to be an amazing episode. We just traveled all the way from all the way from San Diego up here to LA, to West Hollywood to crash in and see what's going on with Lewis Howes. So, follow me.
On fire.
Housekeeping! Oh!
What's up, man?
Good to see you. Good to see you, brother. How you doing?
Doing well, man.
Doing
Thanks
well?
for coming.
Yeah, I'm fired up. I think everyone's fired up for this thing. I want to see what's going on in the crib of Lewis Howes.
Good.
So,
Well, welcome.
sweet. All right. Let's do a little tour. I can't help but look at this as the first stop.
All right, so you could get the idea from that, right? And so what's cool is that, that's a different take at Lewis's home, and he went on to describe the what's your purpose thing, and he talked about how he was so inspired by Pencils of Promise, and he's building schools in Guatemala, and that whole thing stemmed from that. And that one poster then inspired me to meet this guy Adam Braun, that then inspired me to want to go to Guatemala, and now we're building a school in Guatemala, and it's crazy how all these things come together, but that's unique. And he was down to, he shared it up and tweeted it, and that was because people got to see a different side of him, So the point of that is what's your twist and how to be different. As far as gear goes, and it's amazing how fast time flies up here. I was like, man, am I gonna have enough time for all this stuff? And it's whoa. Got to move. So I'm going to be pretty quick on the gear because I have a whole sheet about gear. If you RSVP'd for any of this, all this is elaborated on. So gear, you can use your phone And that totally works. There's a whole company, Outlier Magazine, that they just use iPhones. They record into iPhones with lapel mics. They use iPhones, and everything is through iPhones. So there's that option. You've got, if you're doing anything with like Google Hangouts or interviews on Skype, getting the Logitech C920. It's, I think, $69, and that thing is awesome. And we've done plenty of episodes just with that. You can go DSLR. That is, we went crazy, and we got an expensive one, the 5D Mark III, and I personally don't even know how to use it, which I think is crazy. So I do my stuff selfie style, or I'll use the webcam, and then otherwise I've got like a team member that will run around with the DSLR. But that to me is, you can do it on different levels, and you don't have to be Hollywood production style. If you have a personality brand and people are just into you and you're teaching stuff, you could totally do like a show that is, HD cam and selfies that people are, it's like a reality show. People could get a feel for your life, just using that strategy. As far as audio goes, audio is so key because you guys got to figure, you take your video show and you pull out the audio, and now you have 2 shows. That's another differentiator that's really important. And the cool thing is that both of those shows can get up on New and Noteworthy, and both of those shows can be driving up and building audience for you. The big thing is that if your audio is not excellent, people that are audio listeners, which our audio download numbers have surpassed our video, and if it's not awesome, or we did one where it was windy outside and we're doing some cool stuff, then that is going to turn people off. So make sure that you've got great audio. So I use a lot of just a lapel mic plugged into a recording device. There's the H1, the Zoom H1, any recording device. That one to me is simple because it has less buttons, and that's why I like that one, and it's less expensive. Outside of there, for editing, I was up so late last night because I had to do some editing, and I am not a big fan of, to me, I'm not a techie, so I try and outsource a lot of this stuff. But I mean, I used ScreenFlow personally to do some editing last night, which is very basic. Camtasia is the rival. That's for PC and Mac. And then you could, if you're advanced, Final Cut. If you're passionate about a topic, I would put your time on that topic, and I would outsource some of this. So for me, I'm passionate about helping people set their business and life on fire. All my editing and all that stuff, I've got someone else doing it. I understand that not everyone can outsource immediately, but how do you set your life and business up so that you can? Because I stink at that stuff. I could spend all day doing that stuff, but instead, it's like, have a virtual assistant that can help you out. Number 8 is producing your show. Keep in mind that your lighting is really important, your audio is really important. You want to have episodes in the can first. So John talked about the importance of having 3 episodes just already loaded into iTunes so that when it launches, people are already able to get those episodes and then roll one out, 1 per day, just for the launch period. So if your show is, when I launched, I had 5 episodes on iTunes. Then I went 1 show per day, day after day after day after day after day for 2 weeks. And we cranked all the way up the charts. And so that model we've used with other clients, and they've done the same thing. And then after that launch is done, then I go back to the format. Then it's just 2 per week. So that just maximizes the traffic on iTunes and all that good stuff. Intro, big thing for the intro is you have to make sure that you frame up what is the outcome for that listener, for that viewer, and you want to make sure that it's clear. So in their mind, they are thinking, WIFM, what's in it for me? Please write that down, circle, and star it, because this is something I had to spend $5,000 to go to a conference to learn. And I'm like, so what's the key to marketing, man? And Evan Pagan's just like, WIFM. And it's what's in it for me. And at the end of the day, that's what we think. You're watching right now at home, and you're like, do I stay with Nick? Do I go grab popcorn or some bonbons? You guys are thinking, do I pay attention right now? Or do I just tune out and just go to Mars in your mind and just daydream or something, So it's like, what's in it for me? What am I going to get out of it? Your intro has to be so crisp and so clear. The whole thing is that you've got to make sure that you're really, really clear on your WIFM. So write that down, circle it. So intro, I'm going to show you my intro. And I think what's cool is that if you look at TV shows, they don't start with Full House, Bob Saget and the kids and all that, right? It starts with the little intro of what's happening in that show that week. What's going on with Uncle Jesse, and the hair. It's what's happening? And then it cuts to the Full House theme song. Well, the same is true for your video show. It's like I'll talk about something, we're going to teach this here today, because I'm addressing the WIFM, the what's in it for me, and then I cut to the Life on Fire intro that happens every single episode. And so here's what we got. Hey, what's going on? Nick Unsworth from lifeonfire.com, and I'm going to share with you five reasons why I gave Joe Polish $25,000.
Hey, what's going on? Nick Unsworth here, and I'm a kick-ass business coach, and I'm on an absolute mission to help you find your purpose in life, to help you love what you do for work every single day, to help you be the rock star that you are meant to be, to make more money than you ever thought was possible, and to have more time freedom so you can actually enjoy the life that you're living. I'm here to help you set your life on fire.
This is 007, James Bond, and you're watching Life on Fire TV.
All right, so we're back, and I'm really fired up because I had just okay. So all right, what happened there? So I talked about why I gave Joe Polish $25,000. It's just like an interesting title in what I was doing, and so I didn't go on to talk about. I do this whole thing where, if you notice the curtains, those aren't my real curtains. Just so you guys know, it was green screen. We were new at the green screen, it looked a little funky. But basically, I did a countdown, which I think is great, because it was the 5 reasons why I gave Joe Polish 25 grand. And I had these little cards, and I even got some notes on the back, and I would throw them, then glass would break. I'd throw them, a cat would scream. And so I made it dynamic on the content. So I had the intro, that was me just talking, and I'm introducing what the content's gonna be about. Then it jumps to the actual intro for the show. Now, the thing where it was cutting across the screen with the I'm gonna set your life on fire, all that part. You guys see that? You see that? All right, so that part, did that look complicated to create? Did that scare anyone? I don't think I could do that thing. All right, here's what's awesome about that is, I saw a hand. What's awesome about that is that's a template. That's just a template where you upload photos to, and that pumps out. So anyone could have a really cool intro. The most important part is you gotta nail what's in it for me, what the audience wants. So there's things like templates, there's all kinds of resources for video. You can get clips and do cool things, and these intros are not as crazy or difficult as you think. Plus there's tons of people, I don't know if you saw Lou Bortone, who happened to be here. Lou Bortone I did work with, he did some of my first animated intros back in 2010. The guy's awesome. So the outro, this is important. The outro, you need to have a call to action. And so with the outro, it's like what Greg was saying about Tim Page from Conversion Cast, is that you want to lead them somewhere. If you're I'm just going to be a nice guy, I don't want to sell anything, that's fine. I didn't consciously sell anything on the course or on the podcast at all, and that was what was so surprising to get coaching clients, because I didn't even sell coaching or anything. But what I did do is I sold them with a call to action to take the next step. I sold them on writing a review. I sold them on subscribing. I sold them on coming to the website and getting something there. So every single episode has to tell them where to go and what to do. And so on the video side, again, I want to encourage you to go to lifeonfirevirtualsummit.com and I won't play the whole thing. I won't play the whole thing for time, but I explain why to go to this website, and I explain exactly what to do. So number 9, and I'll blast through these, is just about the logo. We already talked a lot about this, so you're not missing out. The only key thing is this. Look at here, and when someone sees that little video recording button, and you put in parentheses in your description that it's a video, then people say, oh, there must be an audio. And that's what's cool. So even if this one ranks up on the charts, but someone's like, I really just kind of want the audio because I'm jogging today on the bridge, then they'll know that there's probably an audio version. Then they search for it, and they notice that that one's got that little icon. They know that there's audio. So that's how you cross-pollinate with 2 shows, an audio and a video, that little tiny icon in the corner. Now, I made mine to kind of look like our brand. If you want to have yours be Bose or whatever's cool these days, the Beats, you can have it look however you want, but that's a really important piece. As far as the tech, this is some of the stuff you want to, we use Libsyn to host our audio. We use Amazon S3 to host our video. Please, if you're doing a video podcast, do not host your video through Libsyn. You'll end up spending a ton of money. We got bills that were 4 figures for our Libsyn hosting, and it stunk. And so we said, wow, what's the solution? 3 months later, after hemorrhaging money, we finally figured out that you could actually go to Amazon S3 and pipe that directly to iTunes. So that is key. Also, the PowerPress is nice. We talked about that earlier. That just makes it easy from creating that feed that we were talking about before. Submitting to iTunes, this was covered pretty good before, but basically you want to make sure that you've got your keywords, your descriptions, and all the tags and all that stuff on the back end when you submit to iTunes. Your launch strategy, I touched on briefly, which is the 5 episodes in the can, roll 1 out per day. That was the playbook I got from mentorship with John, and that's the importance of investing in a mentor, or getting the shortcut, or watching a course like this, or getting the advanced course. It's like, why blaze your own trail? Why get all the bumps and bruises? Just get someone that's already where you want to be. It makes it way faster. On the marketing piece, this is so important, is that when you launch your podcast, whether it's video or audio, I would say one thing that we did exceptionally well is we executed a subscribe and review contest. So we just had it set up where it was like, at the end of the shows, like, hey, have you joined our subscribe and review contest? We're giving away an iPad, and we're giving away a GoPro, and we gave away a couple prizes. And so what happens is that at the end of every show, we talked about it. When we communicated to people to just check our show out, we said subscribe, so it's 3 steps. Number 1, subscribe. Number 2, write a 5-star review. Don't just say review, say a 5-star review. And then number 3, email me personally and just let me know that you did it. Because there's no way for us to track by looking at iTunes, because people can have different usernames. So we only tracked by whoever emailed us. And then I mean, you're not going to get a million of them. Ideally you get 30 to 50. You take them, put them on a little piece of paper, and then I did an episode of me just picking the winners for the prizes. And it allowed us to get, 40 reviews in the first week, and we were number 1, in almost in all of our categories. So what happens from that contest is rising up the charts really fast. In our case, these were a big deal. The #1 entrepreneurial inspiration show, that was a real big deal. This was actually a really big deal on Business on the Video side, above TED Talks. And this one is video, all of video, on all of iTunes, beating Anderson Cooper. Thank God I screen captured that. Yeah. Perfect timing, just to let him know via Twitter, eat my dust, Anderson Cooper. Eat my dust. How's all that dust treating you? And then all of a sudden, a week later, he's back above me and I'm at the bottom, but no, not that bad. But getting up the charts is really cool, and people become aware of you right after that, which is good. 15, YouTube marketing. You're already shooting the video, so you'd be crazy not to just put it to YouTube. Even if you did nothing on it, that's what I did. I was like, I don't have the bandwidth or the time to do everything. So it's like, well, might as well just put the files to YouTube and see what happens. Well, we ended up with over 2,000 subscribers, and we've got tens and tens of thousands of views, and we haven't focused our time there. So we will be soon, which is good. And then from here is that once you're live, now what the heck are you going to do? So building your audience, being consistent, getting on other people's podcasts, OPP. Anyone know that song? OPP? You know me? Get on other people's podcasts. You want to grow an audience, get on other shows. That's going to grow your audience fast. Other piece is create momentum with the virtual summit. So this is like a what? Like a little bit of a dog leg left concept after talking about video podcasting. But here's what happens. A video podcast, and this is going to be really fast, a virtual summit, all this is I have 27 amazing speakers, right? So I have, Gary Vaynerchuk, Brian Tracy, Mike Cannings, Kevin Harrington from Shark Tank, Tony Hsieh from Zappos, you've got John, Bill Barron. So I've got all these amazing speakers, Tony Hsieh from Zappos, incredible Alex Mandosi and Brian Moran, Jonathan Budd, Gled, Kevin, so just imagine, just to be for sake of time, you take your industry and you get the absolute top leaders in your industry, and it doesn't need to be 27, it could be 5, and say, hey, I want to feature you on this virtual summit, and all that happens is when someone opts in, now what's happening, you're collecting an email address, someone opts in, they're redirected to the next page, which I actually have right here, so I'll just jump to that. And they're redirected to the next page. I then share this $97 product that we're calling the Business on Fire bundle, and that product is it's courses from myself, from John, and other people put into one, and then the proceeds goes to charity. So at the end of the day, what's happening is we're taking, if you're going to interview people, what happens? If I interview Sean, it's a replay. That podcast episode is a replay. But if I interview Sean and it's live on a virtual summit, we can have a live audience. Shoot, we're live right now. And you add value for people, but you're building your email list at the same time. So the whole thing is that if you take your industry and you create a virtual summit and you position 5 people in your niche, what happens is that you create brand positioning that you are literally at their level. So when I run ads and it's my head next to Tony Hsieh, or like, Kevin Harrington from Shark Tank, it's like people are going to be like, wow, this Nick guy's really on the move. He's doing great things. In the virtual summit, what's cool is I'm building my email list first. And then after we do the live event, like how many of you guys are like, man, I would love a replay of this here today? Well, what's cool is that the only way that they can get the replay of the 27 sessions from the virtual summit is they can only get the replay by coming to my podcast to get those sessions. See, that's where the aha moment comes in, where it's like I deliver the content live, I interview people, and I create that brand positioning. I build my email list, because if I've got 5 people on the summit with me and we all agree we're all going to email together, build up this larger list, and then we're going to deliver the 5 sessions, and then if you need to sell something on those, and then you can take your replays from that virtual summit and that goes to your podcast. So the virtual summit concept is totally killer, and I'll wrap things up and get to the last slide. So what I would do is, just for time, your best bet. This literally just launched today, so your best bet is, all replays go to the podcast, that's huge. And then I would write this down, lifeonfiresummit.com. And if you're thinking about doing a video podcast, if you're thinking about doing an audio podcast, just look at how we're laying this out. So if you have an interview show and you're considering interviewing people, look at this and model it and say, could I use this strategy to start my podcast? Because it starts with revenue. It starts with building your email list, and then all the replays from this goes to your podcast. And that, to me, is as far as like, how do you want to run your business? Like, I prefer leading with revenue and cash flow as opposed to like just throwing a Hail Mary with the podcast and be like, yeah, maybe it'll work. So it's like you could do the virtual summit and launch your podcast. Replays goes to the your actual podcast, creates a great way to launch. And this, if you're trying to get interviews for your very first launch of a podcast, when I reach out to Kevin Harrington and Tony Hsieh from Zappos, I was able to paint the picture of what this is going to do. They got that and said, oh, and by the way, it's also going to be on my podcast. I'm like, all right, that sounds awesome. So that's the big thing to check out, lifeonfiresummit.com. Write it down, just see what we're doing. And plus, there happens to be 27 sessions with amazing people like John Lee Dumas, Michael O'Neill. Greg, we got to do something here, buddy.
Get me in there, buddy.
And just amazing entrepreneurs that I'll be interviewing them, pulling out their greatness and their aha moments to give to you guys. And then we're going to take those, and boom, you'll find those replays on Life on Fire TV. And that right there is going to be a game changer. And as we do that, we're going to be raising money to build a school for Guatemala. It doesn't get any better than that. So that's it. That's all I got. And we're going to wrap up with questions.
Thanks.
All right, so I'm so glad that you were able to check out this whole episode of how to launch your video podcast. And here's what I have for you next. So what I want you to do is to take a moment, take probably about a minute, and I want you to just check out our website. If you go to lifeonfireignite.com, I want you to just start to graze this website. It's for my 3-day event coming up called Ignite Your Movement. And if it doesn't inspire you, if it doesn't rattle your cage or just give you that feeling in your belly that you just want to just put your hand through a wall in a good way, but it's all about our 3-day event coming up called Ignite Your Movement. And we're going to be teaching everything from mindset hacks, how to take your performance and just 10x it, how to get more time back, how to clear through limiting beliefs, break through glass ceilings in your revenue, and then also how to build your audience. If you like this content about building up a video podcast, come surround yourself with entrepreneurs making it happen and learn how to build up your platform. And then also learn how to get into action so that you can build a business out of it. You can take your purpose, your passion, and prosper from it. So come join us at Ignite Your Movement in June here in sunny San Diego. And it's just lifeonfireignite.com. And it's a free ticket offer while it lasts. So hope to see you there.
I'm here to help you set your life on fire.